So yeah, I just opened escrow on 2 4-unit rental properties in Las Vegas. 6 of them is rented out, and there's currently 2 vacant units. I got the numbers for it before we gave the offer on the property, but we just got all the lease agreements as part of our due diligence period, kind of seeing that there are some discrepancies in it and some very weird stuff going on. So, for example, like for this area we're buying in, the price for a 2-bedroom is roughly like 1,000 to 1,100, and the price for a 2-bedroom is 1,000 to 1,100, and the price for a 1-bedroom is roughly about 900 to 1,000, depending on how good quality it is. It might go a little bit lower than that, it's down to 850, but not much more than that. So what I've seen here in these leases is that many of them are just re-signed, and they re-signed the lease, 2 leases for 2 years to $650 per unit. So that's like $350 under the current market rate, and it's just signed. And they signed a 2-year lease for that, which means that like when I buy a property, I take over the lease, and I have to honor this lease until it expires, which means that I'm stuck with a tenant only paying $650 a month for the next 2 years to 2 of these properties. At the other properties, we have one for $950 that's okay, a little bit below rent. We got a second one for $906 that's again a little bit below rent. And we got a third one for $895 that's again pretty much below rent. And we got a third one here for $650. There's some discrepancy in this lease as well, where they say like, on December of 2022, they extended by 1 year, but the lease that they signed is to December 31st of 2024. So there's some discrepancies here in the lease that I need to figure out. We have an official walkthrough later this week that we have to go out and we can ask all these questions. But one of the things I need to figure out right now is which one of these units is the 1-bedroom and which one is the 2-bedroom, because the lease numbers that we have here doesn't really say that. So we're gonna go out and kind of do a quick inspection of the property and see what goes on. Additionally, we have some numbers on the repairs that's been done, and there seems to be a lot of bug infestation and water heaters and ACs that keeps going out. So I'm gonna try to do a quick visual inspection before I come out there for the official lease to kind of see what I need to check when I get out there. So the only way to actually get into real estate business is to have money. Like that's the absolutely only way, because you need to buy real estate, and like you cannot buy real estate without money. So one of the best ways to start out in real estate is to start out renting out the home you live in. And by that I mean you can buy a duplex and like live in one part of it and rent the other part out. That also helps you a lot when you need to get loans, because you're buying a home for yourself. And if you're buying a home from yourself, you have to pay a lot less in down payment. So for example, if you buy a duplex and it's your first home, and if you're an American citizen, you can probably get away with 3 to 5% down payment. And if you're not American, a little bit worse credit score, you might have to pay a maximum of 10% down payment. So that is 100% the easiest way to get into real estate. And the bonus effect about that is that as long as it's the intent for you to rent out, so to keep living in the property at the time that you sign the loan contract, it's completely legal and okay for you to change your mind after and move out the day after you sign it. It just have to be your intention of wanting to live there after you sign the lease.
Do you have to live in the property for a minimum amount of time? I heard you have to be there for a year, and after that you can move out.
No, there's no minimum. So take my first property that I bought in LA. I was there for 4 months, but that's only because we spent the first 3 months remodeling the whole apartment, and then afterwards we decided to move out and move to Miami. So Like that is completely legal to do, and it was my intention when we did buy the property in LA to keep living there, but you know, COVID happened. I didn't really see a reason to stay in LA long term after that. So for me, it just made more sense to move out and find something different. And that's actually how I got into my first real estate business. I bought a fourplex. So 4 units is the maximum that you can buy and still claim it as your primary residence. So I bought a fourplex that had 1 vacant apartment. I moved in there and I completely gutted my apartment and renovated it. And that was actually an investment mistake for me, because I renovated it for me to keep living there because that was my original intent. Then the fact that I moved out later meant that I could actually renovate it for a lot less than I did. So I could make more money on that property. But overall, I'm still making a very good profit on that whole property. So it ended up pretty well.
Can you rent a place somewhere and claim the apartment that you bought as your primary residence and just be there while renovating it, but actually live somewhere else? Is that legal or?
So it's all about the intent. So there's nothing illegal about buying a property and renting it out, even though you buy it as a primary home. So legally, there's nothing wrong with it. Is it in your contract that at the time of signing the contract for the loan that you get, that you intend to have this as your primary residence? So that means that you can change your mind afterwards at any time after you sign the contract. The loan company might go after you and like, hey, we don't believe that you had the intention, and they might come after you and like ask you to prove that you intended to live there. I have never seen that happen, and I have done this with 3 different properties that are bought with the intention of primary residence and then later on moved out. Because banks, they don't really care as long as they get the loan, they sell it the next day, and that's it, they're over with.
Why I was asking is, for instance, you rent a place, you bought furniture, you're in there, and then you bought your fourplex. And if the bank requires you for the fourplex to be your primary residence, but you don't want to go through the hassle of moving all your furniture and everything over to your new complex, could you just live in your rental, the unit that you rented, and sign a contract as your primary residence for the fourplex?
Yeah.
But not really live there. I mean, be there for renovation purposes and whatnot, but actually live somewhere else.
Yeah, you could. So if you already have an apartment that you live in and buy a fourplex with the intention of living there, you could claim that you want to continue living in your apartment for a few months more to renovate the apartment you're going to move into. And then when you're done with renovating, once you get that going, you might change your mind that, hey, it's actually better for me to stay in my current apartment, and therefore that's completely fine to do. Again, it's all about the intent that you have, and deals like this is something that you can work out with your broker, your loan broker. So if they are okay with you keeping the apartment on to renovate it a little bit more, I don't see an issue in doing that.
So what I was thinking is buying a fourplex if I manage to secure the funds, but live in my currently rented house.
Yeah.
And not go through the hassle of moving everything into the fourplex. The stuff might not even fit.
Yeah.
So,
well,
what do you think about that?
You're gonna have a hard time if that's your argument for why you want to keep it, right? So again, the most important thing for the rental, or the loan guy, is that is your intent to move into that fourplex and live there. So whatever agreement you make with them, it's basically up to how you negotiate your loan terms. One of the requirements from the loan company could be that you need to have into your lease a maximum of 1 month after you close, or something like that.
To live there.
So like they want to make sure you live there, because the bank makes more money of selling you investment loans, because they have to do 25% down payment, so it's more secure loans for the bank, and the interest rates are normally higher. However, right now, with the interest rates right now, commercial loans are actually cheaper than private loans. But one of the main things you want to do when you buy properties is as little down payment as possible, because that helps you with the cash flow. So you want to try to buy as a personal house or personal property, unless you can. So you can still buy a fourplex without it being a commercial property, but if you don't intend to live there yourself and use it as a primary residence, the minimum down payment is 25%. And let's say, for example, you have a $1 million property and you buy that for 10% down, so $100,000. So and let's say that every month you get $3,000 in rent after expenses and stuff like that. That means that you have $36,000 in income from that property. It's very high numbers, just to make it easy to calculate. It means that you will have a 36% return on investment. However, if you have to buy that same property and now you have to pay 25% down instead of 10% down, so now the cost for you to buy that property is 250k. Let's just say 200k for make round numbers. So now instead of having 36,000 income of 100,000, now you have $36,000 income of 200,000, and now your return on investment is suddenly what's that? 16%? No, that's not right. About 24% instead of 36%. So the whole game here is to have as little money down with as high income as possible. So therefore, if you can start out, like buy for a primary residence, something where you can live in, because that will help you grow a lot quicker. And once you start getting income and you live in a decent house yourself, at that point you can start doing the investments where you actually buy the whole property without living there yourself. Yeah, so my first property, while still being a very good investment, I did some mistakes now knowing more as I've done today, like owning multiple properties over multiple years and experience, that would have done a lot different with my first property. And one of the first things I did wrong was that I waited too long to buy a property, because I lived in LA and my idea was that I need to buy a property that's close to me, that I can manage myself and be there all the time, and be ready to come there every day. So I need to find something in LA. The problem is that in LA, everything is so expensive. So the rent are high, but expenses are also high. So that means that for me to buy my first fourplex in LA, I had to save up to buy a property that cost $1.5 million. And because it was intended to be my primary residence, I was gonna live in one of the units. I could buy it at 10% down, which meant that I could buy it for roughly about 200k down. And then I moved in there and I had to remodel a single apartment and remodel it as I was gonna live there. So I remodeled it for about 80k. That 80k is very cheap for all the remodeling work I did, because I did most of the work myself. But overall, that meant that for me to buy that property, I was about down by 280k roughly. So the reason why that is a bad idea to do is because for the same amount of money, 280k, I could have bought 3 fourplexes in Las Vegas. And especially around the time where the fourplex in Las Vegas was a lot cheaper than they are now. So I could probably gotten started in the real estate game a little bit more than a year earlier than I actually did, and I could have more properties earlier on, which would diversify my investment a lot more than just buying one big property. And then the second mistake I did, of course, was to buy property in California, where they have the laws and licenses and insurance and government fees for everything. So there's a lot more cost to operating a business in California and in Los Angeles than there are to operate a business in a city like Las Vegas and Nevada. So fun fact, I'm actually I did an offer on a 32 unit building, just 2 streets over from this building. and they just accepted my offer 2 days ago. So we're still looking into doing that because that offer is dependent on me selling my property in LA. So we need to figure out how to do that first. So we see here is those two buildings right there. So they have a courtyard together, but a lot of space. Now, this is not the best neighborhood. I would say is a little bit above ghetto. So it's kind of a low income area, but it's still an okay area to live in. You can always tell the quality of an area based on how much trash there's outside people's buildings when you get here. Okay, let's go. Got uniforms in these two buildings, one in each. So I read that that window's broken. I have to figure out which one is this one in the room. Clearly 2 bedrooms. So my guess is that it's either the one or two middle ones or the one bedroom. Yeah. So if we look at here and kind of window separation, I'm pretty sure it's number 3. That's the 1 bedrooms. It's a pretty good location with a nice area here, which has a lot of long-term possibilities to make it a nice neighborhood. And these neighborhoods are coming up, so it's going to be nice. One of the things we really want to look at is the air conditions up on the roof, because this can be a very expensive deal if they start breaking. And we're a pretty nice location here as well. Looking out here. Coffee shop, mall, Mexican food. So one of the good advantages here is that we are very close to a very busy street, which means that you can very easily hang a sign up here that you got for rent, and you can rent this place out like almost instantly. So this is a pretty good neighborhood. That's one of the reasons I'm so surprised about why the rents are so low here. You can even see the strip buildings down there. foam. It's literally just painted foam.
This one, 12 unit tubes.
Yeah. And that's one bedroom?
These are the one that's,
Okay.
she's not in here, so.
Yeah.
The land is too.
Drag everything around. That's probably the dirtiest I've ever seen. It's very old.
It is
Yeah.
1962, I believe they were built,
Yeah.
but he's been doing minor upgrades as he can, but it's still old.
That's a fire hazard.
Oh yeah.
That's okay.
The smoke detector is right next to it.
Yeah. It's fine. What's that? Is that water leak here?
No, that's clean. Yeah, put this whistle.
Okay. It's unit 4, right?
Hmm?
Yeah, 4.
Yeah, uniform, yes, sir.
I'm going to floor here. Another one on the floor.
Yeah, I can feel it myself. And cracked too.
There's been an issue in here with the flooring. It's all wavy like crazy. Photo of this. Hey Rick. Hey Rick. Hasn't made a flooring.
Yeah,
It's
so
like
that's
super
something
weird.
it's good to go up in.
As you see over here.
So there's actually a shoe right here, huh?
This is a trip hazard. Take a look at this room.
Oh, yeah.
tree roots under here.
Yeah. Never seen it this bad.
Yeah, this is bad.
This whole floor needs to come up and
Well, the floors, that's one thing.
yeah.
It's the foundation's a problem. The floor is easy.
Yeah. But where's the tree?
There had to have been some in the center of the courtyard, but they're gone now. It's all empty now.
Yeah.
But they had to have been in the middle.
Yeah.
It's the only place. But they had to have been humongous.
Yeah.
Did there used to be trees in here in the middle?
Well, the trees, yeah, they have the.
So there's always a problem when they kind of do updates like this, because you never really know what quality they did it by. You can see it's very quickly done.
It's in all units.
So then it's a ground issue. Yeah, it's a ground issue, man, because they're in both buildings.
Yeah, but the other building's not as bad as this.
Yeah, but still, those trees aren't big enough to be causing
No.
this. It's a ground issue. It's either, back in the day, there was a lot of expansive soil, but more north of here.
Yeah.
Do they have any history of expansive soil? Do they know if they tested the soil for expansive?
I know, he just purchased them like 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Well,
I don't think he had
It
any.
could be what's called expansive soil.
Yeah. Was it this bad back then?
When he purchased them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've been slowly trying to do what we can with them, fixing
So-
the tiles, or putting plain carpet, because the carpet hides a little bit better. But
So has there been sort of issues in the other units as well? I didn't really feel that in there.
not as bad in all the other units.
Yeah.
I think it's this one, 3, and I think these are the worst ones.
Okay.
Yes.
He works on these units. He says he thinks the cement's too old. Sorry? He says he thinks the cement is too old and busted up. The only time I've ever seen it is when we've had expansive soil.
Yeah.
But you'd see cracks here.
It's
Like,
cement?
like when we had expansive soil, we had to replace all the windows because we couldn't get them open.
The cement, like if there is with cement, it will crack, but not to this kind of way. Okay. What number is this again? 5. Taking some notes. Thank you.
So bad.
See the floor? It's like a roller coaster.
Thousand damage too.
Yeah. You get that before it's uneven.
Yeah.
When you stay on the sides, you'll break them. You said this is not an eviction?
No.
It looks like it.
Like an earthquake. I literally have never seen it this bad.
Because where does the water come from as well?
The what?
The water for that, you have a problem. They never had dog here before, that heat inside. So the units themselves look fine, but the floor here is a major catastrophe. Like you see here, like it's this much different in height
Yeah.
from the low to the high. Okay. last two ones.
So Casper, what do you look for when doing inspections?
Generally major damage. So like a lot of when you come in, you can look at walls, see some scratches, some lights not working, that kind of stuff, and that's all pretty simple to fix. But what I really look for a lot is the floor. Like, is there any damage to the floor, uneven floor that needs some major work? Water, for example, like if there's still standing water, is the water damage somewhere in the ceilings and stuff like that. And in general, just the condition of the property when you go in there can tell you a lot about what state you find the property in. It's really depending on the property. Sometimes I bring a contractor out to give me a quote right there doing the actual inspection, and sometimes just do it myself. I can normally kind of gauge what needs to be done, and you also have to remember that you don't always need to bring apartment up to peak perfect condition to be able to rent it out, but you want to get an idea of the cost that would take to get to that peak condition.
And you can negotiate the price based on that, I'm supposing?
Yeah. So like a seller would never like say, hey, I buy a $1 million property, it's going to cost me $100,000 to get into peak condition. The seller is not going to give you $100,000, right? Because the condition of the property impacts what price it has. But you can normally come in and say, hey, like this is worse condition than I thought, and now they already have your offer accepted, and therefore they're a little bit more willing with you to kind of give you 10 or 20k off to kind of make up for that condition.
So what did you think about the bathroom repairs? What do you do with those?
The bathroom repairs in this unit?
Yes.
Or in general?
In this unit.
Okay, so the major concern in this property was the floor, and the floor is built in concrete, which means that for this property to be livable, because I can rent it out with a floor that looks like an atomic bomb have gone on in there, but you're not going to get good tenants, and you're not going to get high paying tenants. So if I were to get this property, I would need to fix the floor. For me to fix the floor, I have to come in there with a jackhammer and basically take the whole current floor out in all 8 apartments. I think maybe 2 of them can survive as they are, but for all the other 6 apartments, they need the floor completely removed. And not just the floor, but the concrete foundation as well under the floor needs to be fixed. And then that needs to be re-poured, and that kind of work requires city to come out of it, because you're basically pouring a new concrete foundation. So that's a lot of money. That also means that the bathrooms will have to take the floor out. I need to redo all the plumbing in there, and we need to rebuild the bathroom up again. So the condition of the bathroom doesn't really matter so much, because the condition on the floor is going to cost so much money that bringing the units up to perfect condition is minuscule compared to the cost to fix the floor in there.
So what are you going to do?
I am pretty sure I'm going to drop it, but I need to talk to my contractors to get an idea of what the cost is, because I might go in and say, hey, like, this is fucked up, and you're asking me good price. Like, the price he's asking is a turnkey price. Turnkey means that I buy it, I rent it out the next day, it's good to go. So the asking price that he's asking is about $475 per building, and that's a turnkey price for that area and for that rent income. So if I can come and tell him, hey, I'm gonna take it from you, but I'm only gonna pay you $300K per building. Now it's no longer turnkey, now it's a fixer-upper. And then maybe I can go in and actually make a profit on this real estate business.